Welcome to the channel. Love sci-fi? Subscribe, like, and share the journey. The crimson moons of Valon Prime cast an eerie glow across the hunting preserve as Lord Krex adjusted his thermal vision overlay. Standing nearly 9 feet tall with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, the Valdari noble surveyed his latest acquisition with predatory satisfaction. Below him, in carefully constructed habitat domes, his newest prey moved about their artificial environment, blissfully unaware of their fate. Humans. Krex had paid a fortune to acquire these specimens from the Outer Rim traders. 12 adult humans, taken from a disabled colony transport that had strayed too far from protected space. The Valdari Hunting Consortium had been seeking new game for decades, growing bored with the same terrestrial creatures that posed little challenge to their superior physiology and technology. "My lord," chittered his aide, Voss, through the translator. "Implant. The other hunters are eager to begin. When shall we release the prey?" Krex's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Patience, Voss. Let them settle into their environment first. Fear scent is always sweeter when it's fresh." He gestured toward the largest dome with one of his secondary arms. "These creatures are said to be remarkably adaptable. Some reports suggest they possess an unusual capacity for violence when cornered. This should prove entertaining." In the habitat below, the humans had already begun to organize themselves. Krex watched with interest as they formed small groups, sharing resources and information. Their leader appeared to be a middle-aged male named Marcus, a former military officer whose steady demeanor had already impressed several of the other captives. Beside him, a young engineer called Alex worked frantically on some device salvaged from their crashed transport, while Maya, a xenobiologist, studied their alien surroundings with scientific precision. The hunting preserve spanned several hundred square kilometers of diverse terrain, dense forests, rocky canyons, open plains, and treacherous swamplands. Each environment was designed to test different aspects of prey behavior and survival instincts. Hidden throughout the landscape were weapons caches, supply drops, and shelter options, all monitored by an extensive network of surveillance drones. "The rules remain the same," Krex announced to his fellow hunters as they gathered in the command center. 36 standard hours. Personal weapons only. No orbital support or heavy artillery. The prey has access to basic supplies and primitive weapons scattered throughout the preserve. Victory goes to whoever claims the most trophies. Duke Thane, a scarred veteran of hundreds of hunts, flexed his cybernetic arm eagerly. "Primitive bipeds with no natural weapons or armor? This will be over before the first moon sets." The other hunters chittered their agreement, already placing bets on who would score the first kill. But Krex noticed something troubling in the surveillance feeds. The humans weren't panicking as expected. Instead, they moved with purpose, systematically exploring their environment and gathering intelligence. Marcus had organized them into teams, with each group responsible for different objectives: reconnaissance, resource acquisition, defensive preparations. "Computer," Krex commanded, "analyze human behavioral patterns and provide threat assessment." The AI's response was immediate. Analysis complete. Subjects demonstrate advanced tactical thinking and rapid adaptation to hostile environments. Recommend elevated caution protocols. Krex dismissed the warning with a wave. Artificial intelligences were notoriously conservative in their assessments. What could these soft, fragile creatures possibly do against the galaxy's apex predators? As the final preparations were made, none of the Valdari hunters noticed the subtle changes already occurring in the human habitat. Maya had identified several species of local flora with useful chemical properties. Alex had successfully jury-rigged a communication device from salvaged components, and Marcus had begun drawing up plans that would soon turn their prison into something far more dangerous. The hunt was about to begin, but the question remained: who would be hunting whom? The transport bay's massive doors groaned open at dawn, releasing the 12 humans into the vast wilderness of the hunting preserve. Krex and his fellow hunters watched from their floating observation platforms, weapons ready, as their prey scattered into the forest. "Predictable," sneered Duke Thane, tracking one group through his scope. "They're running like startled prey animals." But Krex frowned as he studied the movement patterns more carefully. What appeared to be panicked flight was actually a coordinated dispersal strategy. Each group moved toward predetermined positions, maintaining communication through hand signals and improvised markers. Within the first hour, they had established a network of hidden observation posts throughout the Central Valley. The first hunter to make contact was Baron Zek, youngest and most impulsive of the group. He had been tracking a lone human female through the dense undergrowth when she suddenly vanished from his thermal sensors. Confident in his superior senses and technology, Zek dropped from his aerial position to investigate on foot. He never saw the pit trap, the carefully concealed deadfall, constructed with remarkable speed and ingenuity, sent the alien hunter plummeting into a bed of sharpened stakes. But the human's trap was more sophisticated than simple spikes. Maya's chemical knowledge had come into play. The stakes were coated with a paralytic toxin extracted from local fungal specimens. As Zek struggled helplessly at the bottom of the pit, the human he had been hunting emerged from concealment. Her name was Elena, a former combat medic with steady hands and steely resolve. She studied the wounded alien with professional detachment, noting the location of vital organs and the effectiveness of the indigenous toxins. "Target acquired," she whispered into the improvised communicator Alex had built. "Subdued and ready for intelligence extraction." The hunting party's casual confidence evaporated when Zek's vital signs flatlined on their monitors. Emergency protocols activated automatically, but by the time the rescue drones arrived, they found only an empty pit and a grisly message spelled out in alien blood. "The hunt begins now." Crex's mandibles clicked in agitation as he reviewed the incident. These humans had demonstrated tactical planning, chemical knowledge, engineering skills, and psychological warfare capabilities, all within 6 hours of being released. More disturbing still, they had somehow acquired advanced alien technology. The truth was both simpler and more troubling than he realized. While the hunters had focused on the obvious threat posed by the humans' military leader Marcus, they had overlooked Alex's true capabilities. The young engineer hadn't just repaired a simple communicator. He had hacked into the preserve's surveillance network through an overlooked maintenance port. Now the humans could see everything the hunters could see. "Contact! Contact!" Duke Thane's voice crackled over the communication channel as his hunting party engaged what they believed to be a small group of fleeing humans in the eastern canyon. The Valdari warriors charged forward with characteristic aggression, expecting easy prey. Instead, they ran directly into an ambush. The humans had spent hours studying their captors' tactics and behavioral patterns through the hijacked surveillance feeds. They knew the Valdari preferred direct assaults, relied heavily on their technological advantages, and had little experience with adaptive enemy tactics. Crossfire erupted from carefully prepared positions among the rocks. The weapons were crude, by galactic standards: improvised explosives, modified hunting rifles from the supply caches, even primitive bows crafted from local materials. But they were deployed with devastating precision by people who understood the value of superior positioning and coordinated fire. 2 more hunters fell in the first volley, their armor pierced by projectiles they had dismissed as harmless. The survivors retreated in disarray, their confidence shattered by an enemy that refused to behave like proper prey. Back in the command center, emergency alarms blared as the hunt's parameters shifted dramatically. The hunters were no longer pursuing helpless victims. They were engaged in combat with an organized and increasingly effective resistance force. Crex stared at the tactical displays, trying to comprehend how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. These were supposed to be primitive creatures, barely advanced beyond their homeworld's Stone Age. How were they adapting so rapidly to alien technology and terrain? The answer lay in humanity's greatest strength and the galaxy's most dangerous secret: their unparalleled capacity for learning, adaptation, and escalation. What other species saw as impossible obstacles, humans viewed as engineering problems to be solved, and they were very good at solving problems. By the second day, the preserve had become a nightmare for the remaining Valdari hunters. What had begun as a leisurely hunt for exotic prey had devolved into a desperate struggle for survival against an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. Crex paced the command center, his forearms gesticulating frantically as he studied the tactical displays. Of the original 8 hunters, only 4 remained operational. 2 were dead, 1 was missing and presumed captured, and another lay in the medical bay with severe injuries from an improvised explosive device. "How are they doing this?" demanded Duke Thane over the communication link. His voice carried none of its earlier arrogance. They have no advanced technology, no military support, no— His transmission cut off abruptly as another red icon appeared on the tactical display. Duke Thane's biosignature had gone dark. The humans had claimed another hunter. In the field, Marcus led his transformed group of survivors through the eastern forest with the confidence of a seasoned predator. Over the past 36 hours, his people had not merely adapted to their environment, they had mastered it. Maya's botanical knowledge had yielded a pharmacy of useful compounds. Alex's engineering genius had turned salvage into sophisticated weapons systems. Elena's medical expertise had kept everyone functional despite their injuries, but it was their collective human nature that had proven most devastating to their captors. The Valdari had expected fear, panic, and helpless flight. Instead, they encountered calculated aggression, rapid learning, and an almost supernatural ability to turn disadvantages into strengths. "Target secured," reported Jake, a former factory worker who had proven surprisingly adept at setting traps. "The Duke is contained and ready for questioning." The interrogation that followed revealed crucial intelligence about Valdari physiology, tactics, and technology. Unlike other species, humans showed no reluctance to extract information from captured enemies. Their questions were thorough, systematic, and terrifyingly effective. Duke Thane, proud descendant of a 1,000-year hunting tradition, found himself breaking within hours under human psychological pressure. He revealed access codes, tactical procedures, and most importantly, the location of the preserve's central control systems. That night, Alex led a team through the maintenance tunnels beneath the command complex. The Valdari had designed their security systems to repel external assault, never considering that their prey might infiltrate from below using detailed intelligence provided by their own captured personnel. The first sign of trouble was when the environmental controls began fluctuating. Gravity fields shifted randomly, atmospheric processors cycled between extreme temperatures, and the lighting systems strobed at frequencies designed to induce disorientation in Valdari neural systems. "What's happening?" Krex demanded as his technical staff scrambled to regain control of their own facility. "Unknown intrusion in the primary systems," reported his chief engineer. "The security protocols are being systematically disabled from within." But the humans weren't merely sabotaging equipment. They were learning how to use it. Alex had spent hours studying captured Valdari technology, reverse engineering principles that had taken alien civilizations centuries to develop. Human brains, it turned out, were remarkably efficient at pattern recognition and adaptive problem-solving. Within hours, the Preserve's own defensive systems had been turned against its creators. Automated sentries that had once protected the command center now fired on any Valdari personnel who approached without proper authorization codes that had been extracted from captured hunters and modified to exclude the original users. The orbital communication array, designed to summon rescue forces in emergencies, had been reprogrammed to broadcast a very different message. Maya had insisted on including detailed biological data about the Valdari, gleaned from their interrogations, and enhanced by her scientific training. Any rescue force would face an enemy that understood their weaknesses better than they understood themselves. As the third day dawned, only Lord Krex remained free among the original hunting party. He crouched in the emergency shelter, surrounded by failing defensive systems, as human voices echoed through the communication channels. They spoke in calm, professional tones as they coordinated the systematic dismantling of his entire operation. "Control to all teams," came Marcus's voice, steady and commanding. "Facility is secure. Begin Phase 3 operations." Phase 3, Krex realized with growing horror, was not about escape or rescue. The humans had no intention of simply fleeing the preserve. They were methodically stripping it of everything useful: weapons, technology, information, and most terrifyingly, knowledge about the galaxy beyond their homeworld. The hunt had indeed turned, but not in any way the Valdari could have imagined. They had not merely been defeated by their prey. They had been systematically studied, analyzed, and absorbed by a species that treated every challenge as an opportunity to grow stronger. And now, 12 humans who had entered the preserve as helpless captives were preparing to leave as something far more dangerous. The captured Valdari command ship, Nexus Prime, hung in orbit above the preserve, its systems now under complete human control. In the central bridge, Marcus stood before the main display, studying star charts with the intensity of a man planning his next move in a much larger game. 3 weeks had passed since the failed hunt, and the transformation was remarkable. The 12 humans had not merely survived their ordeal. They had emerged as a fully functional military unit, equipped with advanced alien technology and detailed intelligence about galactic civilization. Initial analysis complete, reported Maya from the science station. Her xenobiology background had proven invaluable in understanding Valdari physiology and extending those insights to related species. The genetic diversity among hunter species is less than anticipated. Most share common vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Alex looked up from his engineering console, where he had been reverse engineering Valdari FTL technology. I've cracked their navigation protocols. We now have access to complete star charts for this sector, including trade routes, military installations, and colonial worlds. The information they had extracted from their captors painted a disturbing picture of galactic civilization. The Valdari Hunting Consortium was not an isolated organization, but part of a vast network of species that viewed younger civilizations as resources to be exploited. Humans, it seemed, had been marked for harvesting long before the first transport ship was captured. Elena had established a medical research station in what had once been Crex's private quarters. Her work combining human medical knowledge with alien biotechnology had yielded remarkable results. I've successfully adapted their healing technologies for human physiology, she announced. Recovery time from injuries is now reduced by 70%. But perhaps most importantly, Jake and the other former civilians had transformed into effective soldiers under Marcus's training. The factory worker who had once assembled consumer goods now commanded a squad of combat drones with intuitive skill. The office manager named Lisa had become their communications specialist, coordinating complex operations across multiple star systems. Lord Crex, the sole surviving member of the original hunting party, served as their primary source of intelligence. His interrogation had revealed not just tactical information, but the broader structure of galactic society. The knowledge was both useful and deeply concerning. The consortium operates hunting preserves on 47 worlds, Crex had revealed. During one session, they process approximately 10,000 sentient beings annually, drawn from primitive civilizations across the Outer Rim. This revelation had shifted human priorities dramatically. What had begun as a struggle for survival had evolved into something far more ambitious. A systematic campaign to disrupt the galactic slave trade and eliminate the species that profited from it. Intelligence indicates the next harvest fleet departs from Nexus Station in 6 days, Marcus announced to his team. 3 ships, minimal security, carrying approximately 500 captives from various primitive worlds. The plan that emerged from their strategic discussions would have impressed seasoned military planners. Using captured Valdari identification, codes, and the Nexus Prime stealth capabilities, they would infiltrate the convoy and liberate the prisoners. But liberation was only the beginning. Alex had been studying the psychological profiles of various galactic species, searching for patterns and weaknesses. Most of these civilizations have never encountered organized resistance from their prey species, he observed. They've grown complacent, predictable. Their security protocols assume passive compliance from inferior beings. It was a crucial insight. The galaxy's predator species had built their entire civilization on the assumption that primitive worlds would remain primitive, that conquered peoples would accept their fate, and that technological superiority guaranteed permanent dominance. They had never encountered humanity's unique combination of adaptability, aggression, and absolutely refusing to accept defeat. Maya had been analyzing data from the preserve's extensive biological archives, cataloging the various species that had been hunted for sport over the centuries. 14 confirmed extinct civilizations, she reported grimly. Another 31 reduced to non-viable population levels. The consortium has been operating for over 1,000 years. The scope of the atrocity was staggering, but it also revealed opportunity. Somewhere among the stars were scattered survivors of those lost civilizations, beings who shared humanity's hatred for their oppressors and possessed intimate knowledge of galactic society. We're going to need allies, Marcus concluded. 12 humans, even with superior equipment and intelligence, cannot challenge an entire galactic civilization alone. Elena looked up from her medical research with a cold smile. Then perhaps it's time to teach the galaxy what happens when humans start making friends. The plan that crystallized over the following days would have terrified the Valdari if they had understood its full implications. The humans weren't merely planning to rescue prisoners or disrupt trade routes. They were preparing to introduce concepts like guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, and organized resistance to every oppressed species in the galaxy. The hunt had turned completely around. Now, the hunters were about to become the hunted, on a scale no one could have imagined. The liberation of Transport Convoy Theta-7 proceeded exactly as planned, which should have been the first warning sign for galactic civilization. When 12 humans could execute a complex military operation with 0 casualties among the hostages and complete tactical success. It suggested that Earth's children were no longer the helpless prey species they had been classified as. Maya stood in the converted cargo bay of their captured flagship, now serving as a medical facility for the rescued prisoners. Representatives from 18 different species filled the space, beings who had been marked for death in various hunting preserves across the sector. Their stories painted a consistent picture of systematic exploitation by the galaxy's apex, predators. The key insight, she explained to the assembled survivors, is that you've been conditioned to accept helplessness. Your captors rely on psychological domination as much as technological superiority. A representative of the Kethar, a reptilian species known for their natural stealth abilities, raised his head skeptically. Your words are inspiring, human, but reality remains unchanged. We lack the weapons, knowledge, and coordination to challenge established power structures. Alex looked up from the engineering console where he had been training several liberated prisoners in basic electronics. That's exactly what they want you to believe. But look around you. 3 weeks ago, we were in the same position you're in now. Today, we're operating their most advanced warship and planning strategic operations across multiple star systems. The transformation among the rescued prisoners was remarkable to observe. Initially, they had cowered in their cells, conditioned by months or years of captivity to expect only brutality from their circumstances. But as they watched humans work, saw Maya healing injuries that alien doctors had declared untreatable, observed Alex teaching complex technical skills to anyone willing to learn, witnessed Marcus planning operations with the precision of a veteran commander, their perspective began to shift. Elena had established what she called resistance cells among the various species. Each group received training tailored to their unique physiological and cultural characteristics. The Kethar learned to use their natural camouflage for reconnaissance missions. The crystal-based Shivanti discovered that their natural electrical generation could be weaponized against electronic systems. The diminutive Pexri found that their small size made them nearly undetectable infiltrators. But the most significant development was the intelligence network that began to emerge. Each liberated species possessed detailed knowledge of their home systems, trade relationships, and the specific predator civilizations that had victimized them. When combined with human analytical capabilities and Valdari technical resources, this information became devastatingly powerful. We've identified the central coordination hub for the entire hunting network, Jake announced during their daily briefing. The former factory worker had proven remarkably adept at intelligence analysis, correlating data from dozens of sources to reveal patterns invisible to individual observers. Nexus Prime Station, not the ship we captured, but the installation it was named after. It's the administrative center for hunting operations across 47 star systems. Marcus studied the tactical display with growing excitement. Nexus Prime Station was more than just a command center. It was the nerve center of the entire galactic slave trade. Its databases contained records of every hunting operation, prisoner transport, and financial transaction conducted over the past millennium. If we could capture that station, he mused, we'd have complete intelligence on every predator species, their capabilities, their locations, and their operational procedures. More than that, added Maya, we'd have the communication network to coordinate resistance movements across the entire galaxy simultaneously. The plan that emerged from their discussions was audacious beyond anything the Valdari could have conceived. Rather than simply rescuing more prisoners or conducting hit-and-run attacks, the humans proposed to strike at the very heart of galactic civilization's power structure. Lisa, their communications specialist, had been monitoring galactic information networks through captured equipment. I've detected increased military activity in this sector, she reported. The consortium has requested Imperial Navy support to deal with what they're calling terrorist activities by primitive species. The escalation was both expected and welcome. The galaxy's predator species were finally taking the resistance seriously, which meant they were also becoming predictable. Fear made them reactive rather than strategic, and reactive enemies were vulnerable enemies. Alex had been working on what he called the multiplication problem, how to transform 12 humans into an effective galactic resistance movement. The solution lay in education and technology transfer. Every species they liberated received complete technical training, detailed intelligence briefings, and most importantly, instruction in human tactical thinking. We're not trying to create an army, he explained to a group of newly rescued Veltari engineers. We're creating teachers. Every person we train will return to their home system and train others. Within a year, we'll have thousands of resistance, cells operating independently but in coordination. The psychological warfare component had proven equally effective. Humans possessed an intuitive understanding of propaganda and information manipulation that other species found unsettling. Every successful operation was broadcast across multiple communication networks, undermining the perception of predator species invincibility. The key, Elena observed, is that fear works both ways. These civilizations have built their entire power structure on the assumption that primitive species will remain primitive. When that assumption fails, their entire worldview collapses. As their fleet of captured vessels grew and their network of allies expanded, the 12 humans began to comprehend the true scope of their opportunity. They were not merely fighting for survival or even justice. They were in a position to fundamentally restructure galactic civilization. The hunt had not simply turned around. It had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen before. A systematic uprising of every oppressed species, coordinated by the one civilization that refused to accept that anything was impossible. The assault on Nexus Prime Station commenced at Aero 300 Standard Galactic Time, precisely when station personnel were at minimum staffing levels. What the defenders faced was unlike any military operation in recorded history. A coordinated strike by 47 different species, each employing tactics optimized for their unique capabilities, all working in perfect synchronization under human strategic command. Marcus stood on the bridge of the captured dreadnought Sovereign's Pride, watching as the first wave of infiltrators reached their targets. The Kethar stealth teams had already disabled primary sensors. Shivanti electrical specialists were systematically overloading power grids. Pexri infiltrators were releasing paralytic agents into the ventilation systems. All teams report objectives achieved, Lisa announced from her communications console. Station defenses are at 15% effectiveness and falling. The 3 months since their liberation from the hunting preserve had seen unprecedented changes across the galaxy. What had begun as 12 humans fighting for survival had grown into a resistance network spanning hundreds of star systems. Every species they liberated became teachers, spreading human tactical knowledge and organizational principles to their homeworlds. Alex's engineering innovations had proven particularly revolutionary. His designs for improvised weapons and communication systems could be constructed using materials available on any industrialized world. More importantly, his training programs taught non-human species to think like humans, to see every obstacle as a problem to be solved rather than a barrier to be accepted. Nexus Prime's central database is secured, Jake reported from the station's command center. His team of mixed-species technical specialists had fought their way through 20 levels of security to reach the Galactic Intelligence Archives. We have complete records on hunting operations, slave trafficking, and military coordination across the entire sector. But the true prize was not information. It was the station's massive communication array, capable of reaching every corner of known space simultaneously. Helena had spent weeks preparing for this moment, crafting a message that would be broadcast in over 300 languages to every world in the galaxy. Citizens of the galaxy, her voice echoed across countless star systems. Today marks the end of an era. For over a millennium, primitive civilizations have been harvested for sport by those who claimed superiority through technology alone. Today, we prove that intelligence, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat are more powerful than any weapon. The broadcast included detailed technical specifications for weapons construction, organizational tactics, and most devastatingly, complete psychological profiles of every major predator species. Worlds that had cowered in fear for generations suddenly possessed the knowledge and confidence to fight back. Maya monitored galactic communication networks as the message spread. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Uprising reports flooded in from across the galaxy as oppressed species simultaneously struck at their oppressors. The coordination was flawless. Every target had been selected for maximum strategic impact. Every operation timed for optimal success. The Valdari home system has gone dark, she reported. Military communications suggest complete systematic failure of their planetary defense networks. Similar reports arrived from dozens of other systems. The Krillian Empire, which had controlled over 200 worlds through fear and superior firepower, found itself facing simultaneous revolts on every planet. Their military forces, designed for suppressing primitive uprisings, were completely unprepared for coordinated resistance, employing advanced guerrilla tactics. Duke Thane, still held in their prison facility, watched the broadcasts with growing horror. "You don't understand what you've done," he pleaded with his human captors. "The Galactic Order exists for a reason. Without apex predator species maintaining control, civilization will collapse into chaos." Marcus studied the alien noble with cold satisfaction. "You're absolutely right. The Galactic Order is collapsing. What you fail to understand is that we're building something better to replace it." The replacement was already taking shape. The Resistance Network had evolved into what humans called the Galactic Liberation Council, a democratic alliance of species committed to mutual defense and cooperative development. Unlike the previous order based on predation and exploitation, this new civilization would be founded on principles of equality and shared advancement. Alex had been working with representatives from over 60 species to design new technologies that combined the best innovations from each civilization. Veltari engineering precision enhanced human adaptability. Kethar stealth technology merged with Shivanti electrical manipulation. The resulting innovations were advancing faster than any single species could have achieved alone. Intelligence. Reports indicate complete collapse of Imperial Navy coordination, Lisa announced. Remaining predator species are retreating to fortified systems and requesting ceasefire negotiations. The speed of the collapse had surprised even the humans. Once the myth of predator species' invincibility was shattered, their entire power structure crumbled within weeks. Civilizations that had ruled through fear found themselves helpless when their victims lost that fear and gained the knowledge to fight effectively. Elena reviewed casualty reports with grim satisfaction. The liberation campaign had been remarkably efficient. Surgical strikes against leadership and infrastructure, minimal civilian casualties, maximum psychological impact. It was warfare conducted with human precision but alien capabilities, creating effects that neither species could have achieved independently. "Final phase initiating," Marcus announced as the last Imperial strongholds transmitted surrender terms. "All teams prepare for consolidation operations." The hunt that had begun with 12 humans as prey would end with an entirely new galactic civilization. One where the concept of primitive species would never again justify exploitation and murder. The hunters had not merely been defeated. They had been replaced by something infinitely more dangerous. A galaxy full of species who had learned to think like humans. The hunters had not merely been defeated. They had been replaced by something infinitely more dangerous. A galaxy full of species who had learned to think like humans. 5 years after the fall of the Galactic Hunting Preserve system, Marcus stood in the council chambers of New Terra Station, humanity's first major contribution to galactic architecture. The station served as headquarters for the Galactic Liberation Council, orbiting a neutral star at the intersection of major trade routes. Representatives from over 200 species gathered here regularly to coordinate their expanding civilization. The transformation had exceeded even human projections. What began as a desperate fight for survival had evolved into the most rapid period of technological and social advancement in galactic history. Species that had been isolated and exploited for millennia now shared knowledge freely, creating innovations that no single civilization could have imagined. Maya approached the viewing port where Marcus contemplated their achievement. Her xenobiology research had become the foundation for the Council's medical division. healing psychological trauma that had persisted across entire civilizations for generations. The final prisoner transport arrived this morning, she reported. That's the last of the hunting preserve survivors. Total liberation count, 2.3 million beings across 47 worlds. But liberation had been only the beginning. Alex's engineering programs had established technical universities on hundreds of worlds, teaching advanced manufacturing and design principles to species that had been deliberately kept technologically suppressed. The rapid industrialization was proceeding ahead of all projections. The Veltari delegation has approved the new exploration protocols, Alex announced as he joined them at the viewport. His innovations in FTL technology, combining human theoretical frameworks with alien engineering precision, had opened regions of space that were previously unreachable. Deep space reconnaissance indicates at least 30 potentially habitable systems beyond current galactic boundaries. Elena entered the chamber carrying data tablets filled with psychological assessment reports. Her work had become crucial as they encountered species so traumatized by generations of oppression that they struggled to adapt to freedom. Rehabilitation programs show 96% success rates, she reported. Most former prey species are now contributing productively to expanded galactic civilization. Jake had evolved from intelligence analyst to strategic coordinator, overseeing the vast network of information sharing that kept their growing civilization functioning efficiently. Long-range sensors detect no remaining organized predator activity in known space, he announced. The last Imperial holdouts surrendered their territorial claims this morning. Lisa monitored the communication networks that now connected every inhabited world in the galaxy. The free flow of information had accelerated social and technological development exponentially. Trade volume has increased by 400% since liberation, she reported. Economic integration proceeding faster than projected. The 12 humans had become something unprecedented in galactic history. The leadership council of a civilization spanning thousands of worlds and dozens of species. Their influence stemmed not from military conquest or technological superiority, but from their unique ability to see potential where others saw only problems. Lord Krex, the sole surviving member of the original hunting party, served as a historical consultant for the Council's research division. His detailed knowledge of pre-liberation galactic society had proven invaluable for understanding and dismantling remaining oppressive structures. The former predator had adapted remarkably well to his new role, though he still occasionally expressed bewilderment at the speed of change. "I observe your species with continued fascination," Krex admitted during one of his regular briefings. 5 years ago, you were classified as primitive prey animals. Today, you coordinate the most advanced civilization in galactic history. The psychological profiles in our databases were completely inadequate. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "That's because your databases focused on what we couldn't do, rather than what we could learn to do. The difference between those perspectives defines the gap between predator and human thinking." The philosophical implications had become a subject of intense study across the galaxy. Human concepts like impossible is just another word for untried, and every problem is an opportunity in disguise were revolutionizing how entire civilizations approach challenges. Species that had accepted limitations for millennia were suddenly achieving breakthroughs in fields they had never considered accessible. But perhaps the most significant development was the establishment of what humans called exploration fleets, mixed species, expeditions venturing beyond the boundaries of known space. The galaxy that had once seemed vast and fully explored was revealing itself to be merely the beginning of something incomparably larger. Deep space reconnaissance has detected artificial signals from the Andromeda Galaxy, Alex reported during the weekly strategic briefing. Preliminary analysis suggests advanced technological civilization, possibly multiple species. The implications were staggering. If other galaxies contained civilizations similar to the former galactic empire, predator species exploiting and hunting primitive worlds, then humanity's work was far from complete. The liberation of their own galaxy had been merely the first step in a much larger campaign. Maya studied the signal analysis with growing excitement. The transmission patterns suggest a distress beacon, multiple species, coordinated broadcast, requesting assistance. It could be another resistance movement. Elena reviewed the psychological profiles they had developed for various predator species archetypes. If the pattern holds true across galaxies, then oppressive civilizations eventually create the conditions for their own overthrow. The question is whether we can provide the catalyst that tips the balance. Jake was already developing strategic scenarios for intergalactic operations. Resource requirements would be substantial, but the technological base exists. Combined fleet construction could be completed within 2 years. Lisa monitored communication networks for reactions to the discovery. Public response is overwhelmingly supportive. Every major species delegation has volunteered personnel and resources for exploration missions. The scope of their undertaking was becoming clear. Humanity had not simply liberated one galaxy. They had created a template for liberation that could be applied across the universe. Every oppressed species, on every world, in every galaxy, could learn the same lessons that had transformed 12 terrified prisoners into the leadership of galactic civilization. Marcus walked to the strategic display, showing their expanding sphere of influence. Red markers indicated former Predator strongholds, now converted to research stations and educational facilities. Green markers showed the locations of thriving multi-species colonies. Blue markers represented exploration fleets pushing into previously unknown regions of space. "The hunt continues," he announced to his assembled friends and allies. "But now we're hunting for civilizations that need our help, worlds that haven't yet learned that freedom is possible, and species that don't yet know they can choose to be more than victims." The 12 humans exchanged glances filled with shared understanding. They had started as prey in an alien hunting preserve. They were ending as the greatest hunters in cosmic history. Not hunting for sport or dominance, but hunting for justice, knowledge, and the infinite possibility that existed wherever beings refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. In the depths of space, new signals were already being detected from distant galaxies. The hunt would continue, but this time, humanity and their allies would be doing the hunting. And their prey would be oppression itself, wherever it existed in the vast universe that was only just beginning to understand what humans meant when they said that giving up was never an option. The greatest hunt in cosmic history was just beginning. They hunted humans for fun. But the hunt turned against them.